Peace and love, everyone. We're only a couple seconds behind. Was getting everything in order with the elders and, of course, Prince, little one. But no further ado, I got some intellectuals in the house. I am honored to have these brothers. They're sharing their time with me. They're sharing their time with you all. So please be mindful of the information that they are giving, and let's do our best in order to, receive it. And once again, I'm thankful for them coming onto the platform. Peace and love. And here we go. Peace. We have Brother Abdullah Bey, and we have Brother Shem.
All right. Peace, DJ. Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be on this platform, to be able to elucidate, to illuminate our people. Any platform where we can be on to extend the elucidation, all right, to extend the ancient history and our history of our birthright and consanguinity to our people is greatly appreciated. We greatly appreciate the work you've done over the years and reaching out to the people and being a vessel to bring our people back home mentally, bring them back home mentally. Though we're home physically, we need to return home mentally.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is Tamara L, right? I'm about to send Tamara the Facebook link. But YouTube brothers, you all have a plethora of information. You sent me a list of treaties. You have some court cases that you all be getting into. But just for clarity for anyone who's coming into the room, while some people are coming in, my personal request, the reason why I reached out to you, because there is some confusion within the Turtle Island community, the Atlantis, the America community, between the Moorish Americans and those who identify as being Indians or indigenous from the original people of this landmass. So I asked people who I know the history, the laws, the treaty, to come in and give clarity on behalf of the Moorish community, the people with melanin, and just the people who deal in, sense. So I am thankful for you all being on here. Without further ado, I yield the floor.
Yes, we want to verify provide clarity on Moor and Indian substitution, but prior to that, it's important that we go into the Inquisition against the Moors. We're going to go in dealing with the Inquisition against the Moors. Let's look at the word Negro. The Negro was constructed under Spanish rule. So Negro falls into the purview of jurisdiction. We talk about the word. We're not talking about there's no Negro people. We're talking about a construction whereby the Spaniards constructed Negro and applied that to Moors to gain jurisdiction over the Moors. So that's very important. We start with that. Then we have Spaniards. The Moor in 1563, Philip II issued a Spanish bulla classifying the Moors as Spaniards, thereby bringing Moors under Spanish jurisdiction. Moors were forbidden to wear their cultural headdress, turban and fezzes, speak their language Arabic, wear their garbs. The children were taken away from the parents and educated and taught Latin by the priesthood. So anything of Moorish character was stripped from the Moors. That's the Inquisition against the Moors. It's also known as the Spanish Inquisition. So we have that. Then you have.
Can you excuse me? I didn't mean to cut your wisdom. For clarity for the room, I'm big on timelines because I know people are not. So can you give us a time when this was about? That way we can always match it up throughout history.
1563.
Thank you.
The Spanish bulla. It's called the Inquisition against the Moors. Prior to the Inquisition against the Moors, DJ, the Moors lost the last Moorish stronghold in Granada. So Caliph Abu Muhammad Ali signed the Treaty of Grenada on November 25th, 1491, surrendering the last Moorish stronghold to Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. That's 14, and Thanksgiving is the celebration of that treaty. That's Moorish surrendering. So, and it put that treaty was put in effect in January of 1492. So that is a pivotal point in history. Go up to 1563, as I mentioned. That is the Inquisition, because what was happening, the treaty of Grenada protected Moors. So you had Philip I, who was infringing on that treaty, and there were Moors who wanted to. We were preserving our culture, preserving our customs. And so to strip the Moors so that the Moors would not reunite and come, that we would not reunite and come back into power, we had to Philip II stripped any Moors of anything of Moorish character. So that was, they launched a harsh inquisition against the Moors in 1563, stripping, as I said before, of the Moors of anything of Moorish characteristics. There were Moorish culture, headdresses, customs, language. So now so now you have Moors who think they're Spanish, Moors who think they're Latino. So then you have this political identity, the political identity of Argentina, Colombia, Dominica, Brazilian, Nicaraguans. Those are not consanguinity cultural identities. Those are political identities of the Moors. They are Moors. They're not Argentinians. They're not Brazilians. They're not Colombians. They're not Puerto Ricans. Those are political identities. So we must understand the distinction between the consanguinity and cultural identity versus the political identity. So it's very key. There are 11 or 12 countries in Central South America that preserve the Moorish culture and Moorish consanguinity through the symbology of the national coat of arms. You'll see a Moorish fez in the coat of arms of Haiti, of Nicaragua, of Costa Rica, of Colombia, of Cuba. So they're preserving their Moorish culture, Moorish consanguinity through the national coat of arms. This is very important. If you're talking about unity and restoring the power, that is understanding who we are, understanding the history. Because you can't restore that which you don't know. You can't restore with this division. You know, you got the Spanish and the blacks and the Indians, when in fact they're all the same people and they're Moors. They need a Spanish, they need an Indian, they need a black. So that's very key. Then we have Blackamoor. Black was added to Moor. Black is a proper noun. Black is an adjective. Moor is a proper noun. So Blackamoor, in J. Rogers' book, Nature Knows a Color Line, chapter 6, the Negro as Moor in European aristocratic families. J. Rogers shows in 1,300 dictionaries, 1,400 dictionaries, the word Blackamoor in German, Blackamoor in Italian, Blackamoor in French. So Blackamoor was added to Moor. Also in J. Rogers' book, the same chapter, chapter 6 of Nature Knows the Color Line, there are 50 variations of Moor, where these are aristocratic Europeans or Moorish nobility, having Moor House, Morgan, Moor, M-O-H-R, the Greek form of it, the Italian form, the French form, the Dutch form, the Danish form of Moor. And so this knowledge of history is very important. Then further, in 1621, Indian was substituted for Moor. Indian was substituted for Moor in 1621. In the book,
I have a question, Brother Abdullah.
Yeah.
when you are in 1620, since we're talking about the year 1621, not to take you off topic, but can we talk about what was going on with the so-called Indian during 1621? That way we can have an idea of who they were identifying as Indians at that time.
All right. This is I'm gonna tie that in.
Go ahead.
Unexpected faces in ancient America. In the book by Unexpected Faces in Ancient America by Alexander von Rutenau, he has over 100 in that book of statues, statuettes, stone heads, and figurines that have broad noses and thick lips. That's very important to give the proper phenotypology, the proper facial construction of what they're calling the Indians. Also in older books in 1800s and 1900s, when they'll say Indians, you'll see dark olive Moors that look like me on Wesley Snipes. So now the question is, those who are calling themselves Indians, why don't they look like me? Why don't you have people that look like me walking around calling themselves Indians? Why do you have people that look like George Bush? You know, thin lips, narrow noses. Where'd that come from? In the 1800s and 1900s in books, they look like Wesley Snipes. They look like me. They look like DJ. They look like Shem. If I go on these reservations, if I go to the Smithsonian American Indian Museum, and I see all these books in the bookstore, they don't look like me. How did that happen?
Some look Asian.
Talk about the Dawes Roll. The Dawes Roll, Senator Dawes introduced a bill. The Dawes Roll is the informal name named after Senator Dawes, D-A-W-E-S. Those who paid those Albions that look like George Bush and Donald Trump paid $5 to get their name added to the roll. This was a way in which the Europeans were redistributing our land to the Albions. All these points are important. We have to lay a solid foundation of clear evidence. One, the solid foundation of clear evidence dealing with archaeology and Unexpected Faces in Ancient America by Alexander von Rutenau. A solid foundation of linguistics. So we have to use archaeology and linguistics to lay a solid foundation of evidence. If you move from that, you're already off. All right, Shem, you have anything to add?
Yes, very important to understand that language is the most important thing. Like Professor Abdullah said, the acquisition of war is created through language, and is also created through, Professor Abdullah said, when they started composing the Oxford and these modern dictionaries, these men like Webster and all these people of European nations started constructing the linguistics, jurisconsultants started structuring the language, which are the youngest of the older child out of the parent, mother, and father languages. And what they did is they did not look back on the older concepts beyond the 14th century. See, nobody never cleared this up. And I'm glad me, Professor Abdullah, is research. See, before the 14th century, they didn't even go back that far. So when they create an interpretation, they would take a jurist consulting copy and put it in the Royal Library for the fraternity order. That would go back before the 14th century. Then they'd take a public copy of connotative denotation and take away the person's rights. Meaning words are limited to what the linguistics said at that time. But when they look back to the original language beyond the 14th century, the older sisters and brothers of the mothers and father languages, they will put that in a royal library. See, nobody is teaching this. This is what, and then what they say is, we'll put falsehood out here with a little truth, like taking a roll of quarters and throwing it into the sea and say, go down there more and find it. They mix false and truth together, false concepts and very little true concepts, so that we can argue among ourselves and we can't even get back to our country in thinking, in language. Now, the second part of that is longitude and latitude, dealing with measurements of hemisphere and atmosphere. They had to change the map around to hide the original jurisdiction, territorial, cultural jurisdiction of the ancient. And the only way to do that is take the ancient names and create a map and put them all over the world, flip the compass. That way they can never get back home in their thinking. See, your thinking is the navigation of your body, of your security and inheritance in your land. Once they take away the longitude and latitude, they not only strip you in thinking and language, but they strip you in traveling, because you travel in your mind to inheritance. In order to inherit something, you have to know where your ancient foremothers and forefathers claimed that domicile area of the land. Was it invaded by the cosmos, or was it a territorial land that was never claimed and they took possession of it? So by changing the map around, Moors are talking, and you're talking about these old nations. They over here. We in the Eastern Hemisphere. This is the East. Everybody look to the East. They switched it around and put the East over there so we can look towards another part. Whereas that's not out of state. That's not our inheritance. So we have to correct the languages. Like Professor Abdullah brought something up good today, and I'm thinking. Abdullah went back and said, hey, Shem, they don't understand. They don't have the knowledge to know that when the Cambridge Library books and a lot of these Webster's and all these different dictionaries, Oxford, when they was formed, they only went to a certain century. They did not look back. The Crown Act to the Oxford dictionary. So by not looking back at the older sisters and brothers who are the first child of the mother and father parent language, you can construct the language now, and you can take away the people inheritance. So when you see words of the 14th century, the jurists, they have a private law to the fraternity order. They have their original structure of meanings and definitions that guides them so that they can't be tricked. But they give you a public edition, and that's only to a certain age. So now we're dealing with land now. Moors don't even know where they at right now. They think they're in the West. You're not in the Western Hemisphere. I'm sorry. They twist the map around. They flip the compass. And how this is being true, that NASA specialist in map building has been assassinated for revealing this secret. That when they was traveling from, they said it's traveling from what they call the European powers, they was coming from what they call the South. To Australia, they was flying up towards what you call Mesopotamia, the Phoenician land. So the longitude of the compass showed that they was lying. The map is a lie. So we have to be careful that we start saying European power Albions, you're talking about Edom. You're talking about a land that's down where it's cold at. The South is the higher peninsula of what? The North is always the lowest. So how did the North get up high? We've been indoctrinated, we've been tricked. So we Moors don't need to be arguing with each other. What we need to do is come together and listen to the jurists and etymology specialists and just come together as a community and have a school, protect the school through the government structure, get back in contact with the embassies as a nation, a society. When we give the map up, we give the proper latitude and longitude because that's our inherent claim. No one can do this for you. You have to do it yourself. We have to ratify these conventions and the international declarations and covenants. We don't look for another nation to do that for us. How can we go to a corporate government that's got at least on a political zone, and they're not even the freeholder? They didn't even see the letter of patent, the prospectors, lords. They are the holders of the letter. So what we have to do is we have to properly educate ourselves. We have not been educated by the things like this, working for them. We'll be educated to fix a car, be educated to fix a plane. We'll be educated to come up with patents, and then take the patent and give it to a foreign corporate government and let them hold it as custodian. Now they got custodian over your patent. We can't even protect our own patent. Listen, the United States government, people that runs the United States in the fraternity order, when they made the Constitution, you notice they never kept copyrighted or patent a flag or this. Nobody even asked themselves because they're not on that level. Why didn't the United States patent a pyramid seal, the phoenix or eagle bird seal, or the flag? The flag was already patented by the crown. They just became a provincial colony written in their space. They was written a colony form it. They see the Lord decided to let the people elect their own government, but they still hold the estate. They freeholders. So they couldn't even patent the flag. They couldn't even patent the pyramid. It's ours. It's ours. The eagle, the phoenix bird, that is ours. The alien North, what they call Indians.
Donasi.
That's right. The United States was sued in the World Court by the British Crown on violation of the GHENT Treaty. Now, why was that treaty so important? I'm going to explain why. The Aboriginal estate of Moors and Indians was being taken by the United States to genocide and apartheid. United States made a claim like they did when they passed the White Statute Act to declare themselves to be free white people. They passed the Indian Act to claim themselves to be Indians. What are we doing here? We're doing birthright theft. You're doing a sheep in the law, feudalist law. Congress is the feudalist lords. They're claiming feudalist law over your states. And then they turn around and claim subject matter to the crowns. So that treaty is important because it deals with guaranteeing the Aboriginal estate, the land, the original territory. United States is going and taking the Indians, $5 Indians, going to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Hey, we made a treaty with the Indians. Yeah, we got control. No, you don't. No, you don't. No. The Indians are British subject. That's a status. Negro is a Spanish subject that was coined before Indian. Now, when you go to the 1744 treaty, the ones that called Indian, Lancaster Treaty, they are more subject. They wars, but their own brothers and cousins conquered them. And when they conquered them, they became subjects of their own people. They became more subjects. When they let the British come in and the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, they took them in as being brothers. That was a violation of our culture, of adoption.
I have a question about the statement that you made, because I feel like this is an imperative part. So during a particular time frame, we all would be classified as Moors or Moorish because of the conquering over here. Is that what you're saying? For clarity for the audience. No. Can we be clear on that one point?
Moors not a classification.
No, that's not classification. That's what I'm saying.
That's our consanguinity.
We're saying the Moors conquer the Moors. If I conquer my cousin land, he's a Moor by consanguinity. But what happened is he becomes a Moor subject as an indenture to his own cousin or brother or sisters. He becomes a Moor indenture in his own land. So he's not, that doesn't see, he's a Moor. That's why he becomes a Moor subject, because he's an indenture to his kinsmen. Now, when he signs a treaty in that status as an indenture, that treaty is void because the lords have not established him back, the people back to that proper status as being Moor freeholders instead of being Moors indentures. So the problem is when the Indian word came as a status, when the European powers look at the Moors, consanguinity, and by signing treaties with them, the Moors, kings and queens allowed themselves to come under the power and control to conquest under the crowns. The kings and queens of England, France, Spain, Portuguese, Dutch, they allowed themselves through commerce to become servitude to the crowns. Therefore, that made them an Indian. That's why they switched the word Indian with Moor now. because they saying a more consequently in culture identity allow us to an agreement that is called an express and an applied contract. They did it. They waived it to express and apply contracts. So when the other Moors of consequentity had a problem with that, they came down and it meant that was a convention, by the way. The 1744 Treaty is a convention. It's a judicial document.
Lancaster.
It's Lancaster Treaty. It's a convention, because anytime sovereign nations come down and more, and you got a host of, like, let's say the representative from 2 or 3 sovereign nations and the representative from 5, that is a convention. So when they say it was not for them to do away with their lands and sign treaties, therefore they declare the treaties in the 16th century to be void. Now Moors did that in the capacity as the Lord. They are the lords over the kings and queens and sheep. The Lord, that's why they had a council, Lord, fire Lord council. Nobody don't read the document to see this.
That Haudenosaunee Constitution, what they call the Iroquois Constitution.
Yes, sir. You'll hear somebody talk about it, and what they do is they get us to argue with this light skin, this tan, these complexions of skin color, which is adjectives describing the amalgamated war, the body, describing the temple, the body. We talk about the body now. This is what the mix-up is. In culture, you're talking about blood. You're talking about body, physical experience, culture. You can see the melon-carbon pigment visible. They get messed up with that. They're not looking at, well, wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute. The mother is everything. First of all, the mother is everything. Just like the ground is everything us to keep us alive. The air, the atmosphere, and the hemisphere, and the earth. There's no mystery to it in culture. The problem is they got us arguing about shades of complexion, of skin, and not looking at the consanguinity of the people we come from. That was the door with carbon and melon and visible pigment. In order to strip someone of their inherent right and their land, you have to first come up with a convice, trap, tricks, and trades.
We're going to that.
Yes, go
What
ahead.
would you classify those as? But go ahead, brother Abdullah.
Let's talk about the convice that Shem is alluding to. The convice that Shem is alluding to is the modern construct of race. Francois Benaire, who lived in modern day India in the 1500s for 9 years in studying that caste system. So he applies some of those concepts in constructing the modern race paradigm. Who picked up on his work was Carl Linnaeus. Carl Linnaeus in the 1700s with his book Natural Selection in 1752. Who expanded on that work was Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, a German anthropologist. So the black, white, red, brown, and yellow, what they did was they came up with 5 constructs to classify the human family based on facial features, brain size, and phenotype. All right, and skin tone. All right, so those are the 4 constructs that was used. This is the deception that Shem is talking about. So when they'll say, I saw somebody down the street. What did he look like? Was he black or white? Yeah, they just arrested a black man.
That's right.
Where'd that come from? They just arrested a black man. Right. They just arrested a white man. What he looked like? Black or white? Yeah. That's Carl Linnaeus, Francois Benaire, Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. They're ruling from the grave. These men are in the grave and controlling your mind. That's linguistic genocide. That's constructive birthright, race paradigm, language. So that's what Shem is alluding to. I just wanted to provide a face to it. Call it Francois Benaire, Bereier in the 1500s. Carl Linnaeus, Linneaus. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, Blumenbach. These are very important. We must be able to articulate, to identify with specificity with clarity the linguistic genocide, the racial modern construct that we have been indoctrinated with. This this didn't exist. What you look like, black or white, they just rested a white man. That's a modern construct. Oh, he's a Moor. He's a Phoenician. Talk like that. He's a Japanese. He's a French. He's an Irish. They go, oh, he's black. He's orange. He's purple. He's black. He's purple. He's orange. He's white. He's brown. That's a construct. All right?
Yes, yes. So you see, audience and people and
Brother Shem, real quick, I have the Canaanland Moors in the room, and they low-key antagonizing me because they know my tribal status. So they're saying I'm being quiet right now because they're saying I'm being quiet right now and that Indians are British subjects. Well, as far as I know, and as far as Brother Shem know, my ancestry extends before any contact with any Europeans over here. So could you all speak on those indigenous people who are here before the aspect of the British coming over and us contracting with them?
Let's provide clarity. Yes. Indian is not the consanguinity. We provide clarity. Indian is not the consanguinity of any people. All right. So when Shem says Indian is a British subject, it's a Moor. Let's provide clarity. A Moor under the classification of Indian is a British subject in international law.
yes.
Once again, a Moor classified as an Indian is a British subject in international law pursuant to the 1926 case in the International Court of Justice. That is the the Great Britain on behalf of the Cayuga Moors, but they say Indians, versus the United States in the International Court of Justice. That's an arbitration case. Once again, and Moor classified as Indian, not Indian. A Moor classified as Indian is a British subject. Not an Indian is a British subject.
Political status.
An Indian is not a British subject. A Moor classified as Indian is a British subject. That's two different. We have to articulate that. When you say an Indian is a British subject, it's not the same as saying a Moor classified as an Indian is a British subject. I want to make sure the language is articulated with clarity. I want to be unequivocally clear. I don't want to leave no doubt. When someone quote me, please quote me. Don't leave no doubt as to what we're saying. No doubt. No stone unturned will be left.
I appreciate the answer. Thank you for the clarity. And that's the reason why I asked y'all to come out. That's why. Right there. That's why. The floor is y'all's. Please keep building. The people is loving what y'all saying. In the comments there, everybody's being respectful and they are very attentive right now.
That up. Yes, that's very clear because, like we said earlier, the word Negro was coined from the Spanish. In order to be a Negro, you have to be a Moor. So that's a Moor that's been categorized as a Negro, a Moor. Right. So that's just called what Abdullah called is called apartheid, language apartheid. And what it does is it's changing your character. And that's the way of conquering the people and not letting them know you're the enemy. Because remember, all the esquires wrote the treaties. Now, you notice something deep. When you read the 1744 treaty and the Moorish treaty,
the Lancaster Treaty,
you notice that the Iroquois made it clear that they say the 5 nations, they never call themselves Indian. Go to the Iroquois Constitution.
Yes,
the word Indian is not in it. The word Indian don't exist in it. Exactly. We got a document. The 1744 treaty make it separately clear. It said the 5 nations and the Indian nation. That's a separation. Who now? Somebody said, "What are the Indians?" That's what the Moors call they conquer brother and sister. They conquer descents that they conquer first. So a Indian is first categorized as there's a Moor first
subject,
but he's a Moor subject.
An Indian is of a classification of a Moor of consanguinity who's a subject of the Moors.
That's right, absolutely.
A Moor of consanguinity and a subject of the Moors.
That's right.
All right, that's what he's providing clarity.
Yes, right? So what happened is let me get this real fast. The Camp Home Treaty, when it's a dispute over land. Now the Camp Home Treaty met with the United States government. The reason why they met, because there was a problem with the Indians, 1836, the status of a Moor that's been classified, denaturalized, and took away his consanguinity as an Indian, was signing treaties with the United States. First of all, that was a violation of the British treaty, the treaty with France, Dutch, the 1763 treaty. Because
excuse me, brother Shem. I don't mean to cut you, but it's people in the audience who are saying that the question was not answered, or I either did not ask it properly. So the question is, are Indians Moors? Because this is the point that the Catalan Moors are trying to make, because they're trying to see where they fit into the jurisdictional rule, or how that they supersede some of the indigenous people here. That's why they're trying to get the clarity. And then he alludes to the Lenape Moors.
All right. Shem has answered well, we reviewed that. Shem has answered that question, and I unequivocally stated that an Indian is no people. There's no people. So all right, let's look at the construct. I did with language. The question is an Indian a Moor? That's a colorable question. It's colorable. Indian is not a people. All right, that's clear on that. I want those who are listening. When you construct the sentence or question, is an Indian a Moor? All right. The first thing you do, you don't answer that question. You don't answer that question. Is anyone, I want those who are listening, if anyone ever asked you is an Indian a Moor, and you answer the question, you're already off. You're already off. The question is constructive. It is colorable. You must be able to recognize first that the question is colorable. Because to answer the question, you're saying that Indian is a people. There's no such people. Indian is not, there's no people. Moors, have the Moors, let me give you the question. Have the Moors been classified as Indian? That's the proper question. We have, this is very important. I think one of the weaknesses, I don't think, I know. One of the weaknesses among those who know their Moors and those who don't know their Moors is language. That is a weakness. I said to Tamara the other day, Tamara Ill, co-founder of the Academy of Providence, I said the problem is, in fact, I said it to her yesterday. I said the problem is, you got those who know their Moors, start picking up a law book. That's the problem. The problem is they start picking up a law book and they go into law books and they go into these dictionaries and their language is poor. Poor grammar. Pick up a grammar book first. Put the law book down. No, I'm serious. Put the law book down and pick up a grammar book. What I'm saying is that we can't separate grammar. semantics and linguistics from law. That's the problem. They're starting with poor grammar. They can't, their language skills are poor. They're looking at synonyms as being the same meaning. So when they go into the Black's Law Dictionary, yes, synonymous. And they read the word synonymous in a Black's Law Dictionary. Oh yeah, synonymous means same. Synonymous does not mean same. That means you're not clear on semantical properties, shades of meanings, and connotations. So therefore, you're already deficient. Put the law book down and start with, it would open you up. That's the problem. So once again, you must be able to identify, are Moors, have Moors been classified as Indians? Not are Indians. Indians not a people. That's not a people. Let me go. Let me give you further.
Oh, good. I was about to ask a question about that, because this is going to be the next question. If they're not Indians, then who are they? Because my people don't identify as Indians. Like the Lenape, we are Lenape, we are Natiko, we are the original people of this landmass. Before any admixture. So just for clarity for those.
All right. In the Iroquois Constitution, as Shem alluded and mentioned, nowhere does the word Indian appear. These are 6 nations. Six. That's what I said, 6. There's 6 that formed a confederation, that formed that constitution. Nowhere in that constitution will you see the word Indian. In all these articles, 100+ articles, you will not see the word Indian. We have to, what I'm saying, we have to slow it down. We have to slow it down. We have to read. We're jumping in. Go to that constitution. You will not see the word Indian. My question, why doesn't the word Indian appear in anywhere in any of the 100+ articles in that constitution? That's one. Because they're what? Indians, they're not Indians. Either Indians not a consanguinity. Let's go back. Indian is a modern English transliteration coming from the Sanskrit form Sindhu. Before it was constructed into the modern English form Indian, Sindhu, S-H-I-N-D-H-U, Sindhu. That's the name of a river in Sindhu. There's a book called Medieval India under Mohammedan Rule, 711 to 713, 763. Medieval India under Mohammedan Rule, 711 to 1763 by Stanley Poole. When the Moors took over the area, the Moors Arabicized a lot of the words. A lot of the Persian words and Sanskrit words were Arabicized. One of the words that were Arabicized was the word Sindhu. So the Silosius, so when removing the initial letter, that is called an aphoresis. So through the linguistic process of aphoresis, the S was removed, thereby reconstructing the word, the Sanskrit form, Sindhu, to the Arabic form, Hindu. Now, there was a further removing. H was removed. It was further an aspiration. So the aphoresis was further done by removing H. All right. So the H was removed. Then you have Indian. That is they didn't create the word Indian. It's a what? Transliteration from Sindhu to Hindu to modern English form Indian. Indian is not a consanguinity, a pedigree, a lineage, an ancestry.
They said is Lenape a
Any
consanguinity?
So we have to be clear, and we also be clear that once again that Constitution, Air Code Constitution, the word Indian does not appear. All right. So once again, a Moor is a Moor classified as Indian is a British subject in international law pursuant to the 1926 case between Great Britain and the United on behalf of the Cayuga Moors versus the United States in the International Court of Justice that deals with arbitration based on the GHENT Treaty of 1814. The solid points. Shem, anything to add?
Yes, yes, yes.
Brother Shem, I know that me and you, we speak often, and I know that me and you are we have bloodline ties. We both are part of the Lenape. There are quite a few questions in here coming up about the Lenape. If possible, could you bring clarity on them? Because they're asking, what is the consanguinity of the Lenape? Are the Lenape Moors? And they're asking, is Lenape a nationality? So can you answer those questions, please?
Well, the Lenape are Moors. There was some Lenape that was unto conquest of their brothers and brother tribes. They came under some of the Lenape clans came under indentured servitude under their own brothers, the Moors. They came under the title Moors. And what happened is that some of the Lenapes kings and queens started signing treaties with the Dutch. And if you go back and see some of the treaties, first signing of treaties was through the Lenape. Lenape clans that over the Lenape Empire, they turned around and signed treaties with these different European powers. And when they did it, they allowed themselves through their language and through the express and implied contract to be taken care of and protected through commerce by the European powers. Therefore, they fell under the status of an Indian, a subject of these crowns. But consanguinity and cultural identity, the Lenapes are Moors. First, they categorize themselves as British subjects.
Now, when you say that they're Moors, can you be clear on that? Because the indigenous, the older name for Lenape is the Naticote. And the Naticote have history that goes back on this landmass over 12,000 years. So that's why, because if you say this and you leave it loose, there are going to people who's just going to run with it and they're going to start calling all of these Lenape Moors. So it has to be clear because they're doing it right now.
Well, the Naticote was the stronghold of the Moors Lenapes. That's it. See, the Lenapes held a host of an empire that stretched forth to call Susquehanna, Lenahokie, and Shakemexim, which William Penn into a verbal agreement, which he built the city of Philadelphia. Now let's go back and describe the consanguinity, the cultural identity. We mean the adjective part of the Lenape Moors. Let's go to one of the crown esquires. He sat down with him. Now he gave an illustration like Professor Abdullah, a characteristic of the Moor culture-wise. He said this, we're talking about description. He did a preposition phrase, and then he did a description describing a proper noun. That's the body. The body is the proper noun, the corpse, the man, the woman, the ligaments, the earth, where we come from the earth. When he described them, he said they are tall, well-built, long, kinky hair. He said they are handsome. They are handsome, a beautiful people to look on. Handsome.
So when you say more, you're just alluding to phenotype.
Yes, we deal with the description. That's what we deal with the adjective. Phenotype, absolutely. Right, that's the cultural identity. So he say they had skin burnt like coal. Now you have to understand. This is what we, the Moors, get trapped in, and the Albion's power structure and indoctrination plays on this. Well, if you wasn't, you just like saying, if you didn't have no real dark skin like coal, you're not a Moor. See what this happened? You see what this happened? That's a division. That's division. the mother, her consanguinity. When a mother have children, all her children don't come out all the time with the same characteristics of the skin. I mean, some come out burnt like coal, some come out with a tan complexion, some come out, it all comes through the consanguinity of the mother. What we have to do is protect that claim and educate on a level where they can't divide us. Now, you're right, DJ, the Ninacos, but however, the Ninacos was, some of the Ninaco tribes was counted, or the Lenape nations, because these Ninacos, these are nations inside an empire. The Lenape empire, excuse me, not empire, a kingdom, a host of nations. Excuse me, let me correct myself. When the other Moors went down against them, they conquered a lot of the nations of the Lenape, and it became, the Lenape became indentured servants to their own Moors brother nations, sisters and brothers. They became an indenture.
So originally, were they identified as Moors, or was that an aspect of them contracting into like British subjectude?
Yes, that's came through contracting in the category. They allowed the esquires to write. See, what Abdullah was saying was right. See, consanguinity is the main thing, but the conquest through language is the draft, and you accept that. Being called out of a Moor, I mean, you're being taught as an adjective. You're being called a description, not a Moor. You're being described as like a character created in the play. They are the authors of this through writing. Remember, Penn was an esquire. He wrote contracts for the agreements for the crown. So when he wrote, he was trained under the European system of the European scholar who taught racism. The esquires was taught indoctrinated under that system of race. So when they wrote the Moors into treaties, when they wrote them, not when the Moors wrote them, because the Moors treaties make it clear that we Moroccan and Moorish. You notice the Moors treaties, they say we Moroccan and Moors. In one of the treaties, it say United States citizen, it say a Moor, and it say American. You're talking about the Moor is the consanguinity. The United States citizen is an adjective describing someone's political allegiance. America is describing somebody's political allegiance under allegiance. That's an allegiance identity of submission to servitude. The Moor in there is consanguinity. That's culture. And the people got to know that. And then added that person. Okay, DJ, anything else?
Yes. Now, you sent me a list of treaties and books. There is, and you even sent me a website link with all these treaties on it. It's a reason, and it's timelines and precedents. Can we get into the importance of the proper utilization of the treaties and things? I sent you a list, and because the treaties are dealing with government. So can we go from treaties, and then can we go into what properly establishes a government body or a Moorish government body, or is that even possible here in this landmass?
So you're talking about political legitimacy.
Right.
First of all, political legitimacy is one acknowledging of himself with an inherent claim. An inherent claim means that you've been inherit your land. You are the offspring. You are the descent and kinsmanship of the people that previously occupied these estates, this territorial land. You can go back. Now, the first thing is testimony. What is testimony, Shem? When a people hand down, they invoke testimony. They hand down to a roll or scroll, or they put it in their memory through education. So the people can hand down the inheritance. The inheritance is in education and is in language. And what we have to have the knowledge of is to know first that the people of this continent, we can't be the ones that let somebody make decisions for us. We have to make them for ourselves. We have to say, we take in account these ancient treaties because they're of our people as the jewel proves. What you mean? The volume of equity. Wait, what's the volume of equity? the decisions, the decrees, the conventions, and the history. The wealth is that. The wealth is these ancient treaties, these ancient scrolls, these ancient artifacts, these ancient runes, and the ancient testimonies that's on scrolls and rolls left for us. That is the inheritance. If you don't get no education, or you're not taught or learned of your people in other land, and you don't know where the latitude and boundary, dominion of these people, then you are in servitude. You can never claim anything. The people got to know. They don't know where they are right now. You ask anybody in the world, they're in the Western Hemisphere. They don't know they're in the East. That's the first loss right there. How you gonna go to the World Court and make a map and say you're a people, and then when you go to hand your map, you hand the same constructed and apartheid map that strip you of your consanguinity and strip you of your cultural consanguinity and strip you of the heritage of the land, because you can't even tell your ancient foremothers and forefathers are from. You can't tell because you don't know where you are in the world, the compass. So when you go by a map, you have to go by a map of your ancestors and use that map and use the old name. Somebody say you can't use the name because it's America now. You brainwashed. They brainwashed you. They got you because you're not your ancestors that was here before the word America was even coined. That's not a people. That's not a land. That's a political jurisdiction. The ground that we stand on, our mothers and fathers come out of the ground. That's not the ground.
I have a question pertaining to that statement, because you said before America was coined. So how does that fit for someone, just so I'm being fair in this statement, how does that fit for someone identifying as an American Indian or a Moorish American?
All right, let me answer that. Abdullah. The name America, like the name, like Indian. Indian was not coined. American is not coined. American is a reconstruction, just like Indian is a reconstruction from Sindhu. American is a reconstruction. In linguistics, it's called a transliteration or reconstruction or a sound shift. So the vowels, when you talk about shifting, ablaut, A-B-L-A-U-T, that's called ablaut. When there is a vowel shift, the vowel shifts to create a different pronunciation. American, Moroccan, through ablaut, through vowel shifts, is now pronounced American. That is not a coining, that's ablaut. I'll give you the proper linguistic terminology. All right, we have to look at the linguistic terminology of the methodology, because the linguistic terminology identifies the methodology of the sound shift. It's called ablaut, right? So it's a change of pronunciation. When that happens, when there's a shift, what is the motive, Abdullah? What is the political motive of doing an ablaut methodology of shifting the sound from Morocco to American? It creates a different jurisdiction. So when Shem is talking about American creates the British zone jurisdiction, we have to use the name Moroccan. Right. We teach that the name American is an ablaut from Moroccan. We're Moroccans. Go back to the original sound. Go back to the sound previous to American, Moroccan. The treaties, hear me out. The treaties between the European powers and Morocco from 1610 to 1892. The treaty between Morocco and France, Morocco and England, Morocco and the United States, Morocco and the Netherlands, Morocco and Sardinia, Morocco and Spain, Morocco and Denmark. those treaties between 1610 to 1892. American is not there. They don't say the treaty between the American Empire and France, the treaty between the American Empire and Germany, the treaty between American Empire and Sardinia. It's Morocco. Use the word, the name that's in those treaties. Morocco. I just want to give people something clear, something that's directive, something that's focused, something that's well settled. Shem.
Or can you see the question on the bottom of the screen?
Yes. Everyone can see and hear you. Yes.
No. It says tell him to speak on Al Marrocanos Estados Republicanos.
All right, let me speak on that. I want to make sure he's taught. Are you asking me to speak on the linguistics of it, or it being was it?
I guess it will for the audience.
Got to be clear. All right, is that a name? Is that a name of? Is he claiming, he or she claiming that to be a name of a legitimate body politic, or is he asking me to speak on that? Is that the name of the land? You want to speak on the linguistics of it? I have to be clear. I can't.
He said it's being relative to linguistics.
All right, then. All right. Once again, Moroccanos. You're using ablat, A-B-L-A-U-T. Vowel shifts. That's all. The vowels were not used. The construction of a word is its consonants, not vowels. The vowels has nothing to do with the construction of a word. The consonants. So as you are shifting vowels, the sound changes. So you're saying Moroccan, Moroccanos, American. All that is ablat methodology. That is a linguistic methodology. That is the proper way to answer the question through linguistics. It's ablat. He can do AMUURIKAONOS. You could do AMOOK, Amurakanos. I mean, you could AMORIKNS. I mean, we can, you're just changing the pronunciation. But keep in mind, what is the name of the sovereign body that are in the treaties between 1810 and 1892 between Morocco and the European power? What name? Please hear me, y'all, please. What name appears in the treaties?
As far as I know, a lot of them haven't read the treaties.
Solid, DJ. We got to give them something solid.
Yes,
we can't be all over the place. We gotta go to what's well settled.
A lot of the Moors are they're appreciative of the information that you're putting out, and I feel like some of them are getting the wrong idea about this. This was solely for clarity, so that we all can move forward as a whole. Because I see a lot of misinformation coming from both sides. But my main thing is like the jurisdiction for. Well, as it pertains to you all being here, the jurisdiction for the Moorish Americans, I feel that should be properly identified. That way that they understand where they stand and that it doesn't supersede other indigenous people here on the land. Unless they're acknowledging that they're under British rule. And then it's possible in some aspects. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Well, when we look in modern time to now, we have to look to the 1856 treaty in the ALGECIRAS and the 1912 treaty, because the French was operating as a successor of the Sultan. That's the protector, French protector. 1906, we're dealing with control and operations in Morocco here, in the continent, North, Central, and South Morocco. If you got North, Central, South America, then you got to have North, Central, South Morocco. It's impossible to have North, Central, South America and not have North, Central, South Moroccan. You got to have that, because that's what that political jurisdiction word came from. They created it. It had to come from the parent. So now let's deal with this. In the 1856 treaty, when Great Britain was dealing with political jurisdiction over civil and criminal disputes,
No, you're saying treaty or case? We talking about
treaty. It's with the treaty, 1856 treaty.
Right, the general treaty.
Treaty between Morocco and Great Britain.
All right.
1856. Thank you,
right.
Professor. When the jurors on the side of the crown was making a treaty with the Moors, they wasn't allowed to write the treaty in a connotative way, because the Moors was educated. See, this is why I said the linguistics was educated,
very comprehensive,
and contracts, because they knew contracts can denationalize you and take away your political status, but you servitude to the very people that you're signing, and you are the hosting nation. They are this foreign nation. In that treaty, the word Moorish, Moor, and Moroccan is in that treaty. Matter of fact, that is one of the only decorated treaties besides the 1744 treaty, the Lancaster Treaty, where Morocco made it clear that they got original jurisdiction. What do you mean, Shem? In the treaty, it said if a dispute arises, civil or criminal, and a Moor, it didn't say Indian, didn't say an American. See, these are not concepts.
That's what I said.
See, they was dealing with cultural identity, not political allegiance. That's the difference. That's the Indian, Negro, these are denaturalized through language to bring you under what? Political allegiance of the crowns, these governments. But when you use the word Moors, Moroccan, or Moorish, that's cultural identity connected to consanguinity. So France say that the Moor have original jurisdiction, the Mufti, or the head of state, Great Britain, made it clear that the Moors, as a defendant in any civil criminal dispute, they have original,
or the treaty makes it.
The treaty makes it clear. The language in the treaty makes it clear that they have original jurisdiction. Now, if the Moor is suing any nation or state that's been given to operate in the French political Spanish zone, or Portuguese zone, or the Netherlands zone, pursuing the treaty, and it made it clear in the treaty of 1865, which is the general treaty between Morocco and Great Britain, 1856, that any state through conquest or treaty against the United States, they are a state through a treaty of 1783. We don't have to go no further with that.
That's the treaty between the Treaty of Paris between Great Britain and United States.
Now, when they made that determination that if a Moor has a civil or criminal dispute, and the Moor is a plaintiff, they agree that the Moor's counsel will go to the British counsel, and they will argue that matter, and the British counsel will be the what? The judicial officer, not the Supreme Court judges, not these other nations that anybody operating, not the freeholders, or not even the Penn family that have all these, got these letters of patent. It is the parent. The protector, the French protector in the 1952 case bars a Moor. It didn't say Indian. Remember that case was argued. It was arguing about consanguinity, a Lothian title, the origin of the people of the land. We sat down with these ancient people and signed grievance treaty. They used the word Moor, Moroccan. Why is that in the 1852 case with the world body? Why did they win 1952? Why did they win this case?
That's a 1952 case between France and the United States in the International Court of Justice
at The Hague.
All right. Yes, who had the most favored nation status?
Yes. Go ahead. Now, when something come up like that, United States was granted a charter to operate the British, to use the British franchisees. They're franchised. They're using the British colony names, the Delaware, New Jersey. They use the names as a lessee to run a corporate government. Now, in these treaties was the word Moor, not American, not Indian, not Negro. When you see this on a high level like that, these are jurists looking back, and they use it with Abdullah say linguistics. They go back before the 14th century because they know the ancient people, and they look at the earlier child and the language that that word comes from. They use it because they know they use the wrong word to strip them of their claim in the world court. So this is very important that we have to look at. The problem is we're not trained under international law. We're not trained culture. We're not trained in our Moorish culture, meaning with customs, ceremony, festivals, rituals, rites. We're not trained in these festival holidays. We're not trained and educated in them. So when you look at world cases and they're arguing, I tell somebody, if you call yourself an Indian, you are more consanguinity. You just going under the category of submitting yourself and listen to me, you're evading yourself first of the treaty protection, the Moorish treaties, because this is what I say. You can't be an Indian with that status as an Indian. That's only a political allegiance status, and try to enforce a Moorish treaty. They're going to block you because the treaty does not gives a characteristic of a person, a British subject, can bring that claim. Just like a Moor can bring a claim and say, hey, watch this. You are violating the Indians. That's a Moor can do that. A Moor can bring a claim against Spain, France, or anybody in the world court and say that you are violating the Indians. And they can prove it by going to the 1744 treaty and going to the Camp Home Treaty and saying that they are associated band, the Indians. What you mean? There are Moors first under the category name of apartheid as an Indian. I mean, they've been denationalized as a British subject through language and to political allegiance, not to consanguinity, cultural identity. You can't strip that from them. So we have to understand is to come together and respect. If you say you're an Indian nation, let me explain what's going on so we don't have to argue. Break it down. You saying that you're a nation. I'm going to say another thing. Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil. These are political allegiance. These are people that have a political allegiance to France, Spain, Great Britain, England, Portuguese, Dutch. They using a political, they come up with a name based on what? Denotation. They're taking away the language claim. They don't have a cultural identity to Moorish. Because if they did, when they made a constitution, they would let it be known in there the status and the cultural identity of the people that's forming that constitution.
That would be in the preamble. Absolutely. That would be a preamble of the Constitution.
Yes.
of the Dominican Republic, Constitution right. of Dominica, Constitution Argentina, Peru, Haiti,
Nigeria,
Rica,
Africa.
That would be in the Constitution.
Condo,
we the people of Morocco, preserving our ancient Moorish consanguinity and customs and festivals. You know, they claim to be Argentinians. They claim to be Dominican. They claim to be, Cubans.
Yep. Why?
So let's be clear. Let's be clear. When it's said that those who are classified as Negro, color, black have not claimed their nationality, I'm gonna say with those who classified as Dominicans and Argentinians and Cubans and Venezuelans and El Salvadorians have not claimed their nationality. Hold on, let's be clear. I'm gonna say it again. Those who claim to be Dominicans, El Salvadorians, Colombians, Nicaraguans, Peruvians, and etc. have not claimed they have not publicly declared their nationality. Don't you go and beat up. You are not going to just beat up those who are classified as black, nigger, color. I'm not going to allow that. They have not claimed their nationality either. That is not their nationality. That is a political allegiance. that Nicaraguan identifies their political allegiance. It does not identify their nationality, their consanguinity. So so what they're doing is they're using nationality in the political sense of allegiance, but in the original sense of nationality, it's used in the consanguinity. Let me finish. In 1935, in the 1935 German Nationality Act. Let me go prior to 1935. Throughout the 1800s, there was a political football between just solely and just sanguinis. Just sanguinis is blood, just solely land. So just solely and just sanguinis. A political football throughout the 1800s throughout Germany. So what happened was, to make it clear, 1935 German Nationality Act. German was used. They made it very clear that German in this act will be used in the sense of consanguinity and not in a political sense. Prior to that, German was used in the political sense of just solely. So what was they doing? What was that act doing? What does that act mean? They were nationalizing, claiming the inheritance, by making it clear in that act that a German is one of German consanguinity, having nothing to do with a German being used in a political sense. All right, let me be clear here. We got to be clear on nationality being used in the consanguinity sense. I am a Moor. That's my consanguinity. I go to China, and then there's a naturalization laws of China, and I qualify that. All right. Now, I'm gonna always be a Moor. That's my consanguinity. But now I'm a Chinese citizen. I'm a Moor consanguinity, a Moor's blood, who no longer has allegiance to Morocco. I renounce my allegiance to Morocco, and I now have allegiance to China. I am a Moor, a Chinese citizen. I'm a Chinese citizen of Moorish descent. That's fundamental. All right.
Brother Shem, he expresses it very well when he say it. Can you yourself express like your nationality and your personal consanguinity? That way, like the people can hear how somebody who's knowledgeable expresses it.
Okay, if one would ask me and say, Shem, what is your national your nationality as far as consanguinity? And I would have to say I'm a Moor. The reason why, because I'm dealing with carbon, melon, physical, pygmy, visible can be seen. Now, that's my consanguinity. Now, what people are you from? I would say this here. My culture allegiance is Israel, because Israel, Jacob, Abraham, Moab, Ishmael, these are Moors, but they cultural identity is of the Moorish nation, which is the melon carbonated people with pygmy that you can visibly see. That was called these names, title names of the land. So somebody say, well, you saying you are a Israeli Moor? Yes, absolutely. Because these are ancient names that go back. These are our descent. So the problem we got is we looking at political allegiance and status, and not looking at consanguinity, culture. And see, remember Germany, when they made that clear, they never say anything about doing any DNA testing. What the hell do that come from?
Oh my God!
You got a grapevine,
brother Shem. Just for clarity, because there's people who are trying to say that I lied on you. But can you do you have any Lenape ancestry?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm a direct descendant from them. Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
As am I. We have blood ties. Yes. So. just for clarity, I have no reason to lie on anybody or anything. I'm here for the information that you all can have clarity. So I don't feel any ways about anything that has been said. And just for clarity, Brother Shem, isn't that your personal consanguinity and nationality? Others are entitled to their own. Am I correct?
Yes, if that's an inherent right upon the people that come together and determine what's their cultural identity based on consanguinity. Nobody can strip a person. If you're in a province or a region of a territory in the Moroccan Empire, which is called Sheikh Mexim, which is called Leninhoki or Susquehanna, which is what? Part of what? Turtle Island. If you make a claim there, you can't be all the way down in the north part of Morocco or Turtle Island and say that you're ruling people up there, higher territory, and you don't know about what's going on. You know about government. You don't know what's going on.
Okay, since we're getting into the government and I have you here, I have a particular organization. They claim to be the only ones that have it right. They claim that they are the United States Republic, which was established in 2015, which can be found to be a corporation, and they established themselves underneath the premises of walking in Prophet Noble Drew Ali's footsteps, but some will call them a renegade operation. And it can be found that they have established their jurisdiction out of Indiana, and they have received documentation of acceptance from a de facto system that they are saying gave them jurisdiction in order to supersede all others. So could you make this claim for the people? Because to me, it sounds like a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, Abdullah.
All right, so thank you for that, DJ.
Yes.
When you that's what we have to, let's analyze that using jurisprudence. All right, and we have to teach the people how to analyze. So when somebody makes that claim, I got it. You ask the question, when was their constitutional convention? You ask, when was their constitutional convention?
I've never seen one. What
I'm doing is, I know
what you're doing, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, so we're teaching the people how to analyze. They don't know. The people don't know how they don't know political legitimacy. So they have to be taught how to analyze based on the principle of political legitimacy. So you ask, when was their constitutional convention? You don't first ask, do they have a constitution? No. When was their constitutional convention? When do they have a population of people as voters that received that constitution for review? All right. So what is their population? All right, of people as voters? So that's 2. So they're making those claims there. All right. So you're talking about when was the Constitution ratified and sent to the people for review? When was the Constitution ratified? All right, Shem, you have another questions?
Yes. And if you claiming a mass territory in your when you make that claim, what are you offering to the international community of your Moorish and your cultural political identity of the people, the cultural identity of the people that's in the Constitution? Who are the people that's drafting it, and who is the body of people that's coming together? What is their cultural identity? What is their attachment to the land? Where is the longitude and latitude of the country?
They have a president, and there's one individual. As I don't know if there was a voting that happened. There's a couple of the members in the chat. You all can chime in. I'll be happy to put your answers up just so it's clarity. But they are saying go to the website, and and I applaud brothers who stand firm on their square. I'm not about the foolishness, and I'm about the facts, because it is our people who are being led into these directions. And whether if it's right or if it's wrong, I just want to be sure, because these are still my brothers and my cousins and stuff. So for clarity, I don't mind if it get bust down. I don't mind if anything gets bust down, because we are all still students and we're learning, and we have to learn to stop being emotional about information.
Well,
Right.
anytime you see a people come together without a convention, that's number one. Because the reason why a convention is thrown, because there's more than a host of sovereigns. And then you don't see them buying together in a treaty. That's second. It's not a population of people. There's no constitutional structure. And then you see them go to a party or a corporate state or corporate nation that don't even have jurisdiction in the territorial lands of Morocco. That means there's not a jurist operating that. Like Abdullah said, they picked up law and they're not responsible for grammar. You know, Abdullah, right, you have to understand grammar, language. And language is looking back and grabbing the old writings, the old instruments, and presenting them as evidence of your inherent. People had it back then. It wasn't delegated to them. No one can give it to them. It's a right to claim, to inheritance, to voluntary acceptance. Anytime you say that you're a sovereign nation over the whole Morocco empire here in north of Turtle Island, when you make that statement, you are operating as a sultan or an emperor or empress. That's a monarchy. That means you don't care who the population of people is. Then you say you go to someone that's not even the most favorable nation, and you go to them and they de facto ask them for a treaty when they are getting permission from someone else to operate business. You going to them, that's de facto. That means you don't know what you're doing. You go to somebody that don't absolutely have jurisdiction in Morocco. Why are you going to them? You're saying that you acknowledge yourself and you go to them. They acknowledge you, so therefore they delegate you authority. You got to acknowledge them. You are the descent and kinsmanship of the people that acknowledge them, that they beg for rights and permission. How you going to go to them and say they acknowledge you? That's your right. That comes from not being a jurist handling it, and you don't understand grammar, and you haven't understand the treaty. You haven't looked back to Sokofa. You haven't looked back to educate yourself. You're not educated. You indoctrinated, and under that doctrination, you probably come from some kind of wrong mentality of thinking, and you want to usurp your authority over the people without knowing how to do that based on well-settled principles and jurisprudence of law and culture. Brad, do you want to add to that?
All right. Wonderful, Shem. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Definitely don't have anything to add to that. What I will say to that is, for 28 years, what I have observed is 5 Moors or 10 Moors will come together and they will create a name. They will create a name, a body, and they will claim to be the Moorish national, federal, whatever. They would claim to have the sovereign authority. They would make the claim that they have the sovereign authority, all right, from tens of millions of Moors. That's how they would act. They act that the tens of millions of Moors, all right, voted through a plebiscite, that there was a plebiscite where a population of millions of Moors, through a plebiscite, delegated this body of 5 or 10 Moors authority. So we are the Moorish national whatever. I've seen that for 28 years. Abdullah, why do they do that? Let me answer that. Some do that to use this Moorish movement as a business. Oh yes, as DJ said, he don't care about busting it out. Neither do I. I don't care about busting it out either. I'm talking about 28 years of observation. They're going to sell nationality cards. Oh yes. They're going to sell packages. Oh yes. And they're going to pay their car note. They're going to pay their rent. They're going to pay their mortgage. They're going to buy their children clothes, all right, through selling that. And they would say, well, you know, somebody, we got to get paid. but you were not delegated authority. There's no constitution. There's no checks and balance. Oh, yes. Let's bust this thing out. They're using it as a business.
Now, that was I felt it. I appreciate your candor for sure, and just the level of honesty. And even there's some brothers from the indigenous community who tribe is, who will be coming on later in order to voice some of their opinions. But I know themselves, they have been able to go back and see like forms of sub branches being formed back of the MSTA all the way back in like the 1929, 1930, like right after Prophet stopped. I seen the Moorish, it was the Moorish Shrine Temple, and that was an FBI document. So this is something that has been long going, all these generations of offshoots of the temple and these misconstruing. That's the reason why I wanted to have this level of clarity here. That way it can be understood. What was for the MSTA is for the MSTA. And when you go outside of that, you're not operating in that. That should be simple.
Well, I'm a firm believer when you use a man as an anchor, it's like you on a ship, a vessel. You don't want you go into a shore, a pier. You have to anchor the ship. Who made the ship, and who had the anchor? So you go back to the architect who built the ship that you on. The navigation hymns on the ship and the wheel. Who's navigating the vessel? And who's saying drop the anchor? So when you go back to a man like Timothy Jew, Noble Drew Ali, you have to go into what he say. And the problem is they don't want to go back and want you to read what he say his authority was, what he was doing, his mission was. When you read what his mission was, and you read that he signed it, he endorsed it, and he had witnesses like 5 or 6 grand sheiks signed it, then we have to go with that and see, are you doing what he's saying in our authority? Now, when you come back with a constitution, say he written it,
excuse me, I don't mean to cut you, but per that statement, I have heard Cannon Bay say it himself on video on Tahaka's platform. He is walking in the prophet's footsteps because he has utilized the words of the prophet saying that we have our own government, and he took it upon himself to establish that said government.
Okay, let me say something. Once again, I'm going to go back to what Noble Drew Ali say in his authority. He said to promote the doctrine of Prophet Muhammad, the Quran. That's what he said. He never said in it that he was a prophet. Number one. Yep. Let me explain. Let's go into ecclesiastical law. Let's leave social trust alone, because we're dealing with I have said when he made it the thing of a prophet, a seer, that's ecclesiastical law, culture. That means he's going by what the prophet said, the seer, the foresee, the one that go to the unseen world, receive the revelation, and come back and say, this is what we have to do to obey them. Now, he never said anything else but what he said in there. Now, the Aquarian gospel is nothing of a revelation that Noble Drew Ali received from as the Daouti that received the cosmic record. That is an old revelation that's already been written and stored in a library. See, we got to stop playing with each other. A prophet or a prophetess or a seer or an apostle, when they are ordained by the invisible powers of the invisible world, they are taught with. They are ordained and told. They invoke and told them who they are. When you hear a man, when you say a man is a prophet or seer, are you ordaining him? Or did he proclaim himself as a messenger himself? There's a difference between a prophet ordained by the cosmos than a prophet of proclamation of himself or other people. That's a separation. See, we got to break this thing down. Now, we don't have to argue about Noble Drew Ali because he wasn't my teacher. Now, hear me out. Neither the people that I come from under Noble Drew Ali. Neither this revelation and knowledge that me and Abdullah got don't come from Noble Drew Ali. Me and Abdul was destined, we was given this in our mother wombs. We are ordained not by our mother. This is put in us when we came in our mother womb to set the record straight for this time. The problem is everybody wants to add on. Noble Drew Ali said this. Noble Drew Ali did this. But Noble Drew Ali never said it himself when he was alive. He's dead now. You can say what you want to say. And what hurts you bad is when you can't validate he did that because you was not born back there, and the ones that was born back there only was going by our authority. You won't look at our authority. You try to throw that in a garbage can now, but you will say, oh, our authority's in Cook County, but you won't let nobody talk to you with you on that and say, let's stay here. I don't need you running all over the place like a racehorse or a greyhound dog or rabbit. I need you to stay still right here. And let's deal with what he said. Once we acknowledge what he said, now what are you doing based on that authority? What are you doing now? That's all we got to do.
That's registered in the Articles of Incorporation. It's registered
absolutely
in Cook County.
We hear Morris say this. Listen, Morris, you already, the man made it clear in Ecclesiasticals that he's following Prophet Muhammad, the Quran. That's ecclesiastical claim. Moors come together and enforce the treaties, the Moroccan and Moors treaties. Come together as a community, all of y'all. Have an election. Have a grand body set up with election. Get your flag, whatever you got. Let's come together and sign a treaty so we can protect the land, our women and children, our sketch honor. Let's stop playing these word games and bringing up stories and mysteries that you can't prove. The man said himself. If a shotgun was cocked to your head, a double barrel, and it said, prove that Noble Drew Ali said that, you would be dead. Because you couldn't prove it. Let's stop playing. Let's love one another. Next.
Once again, I appreciate the candor and the aspect of just, us being realistic about this, because we're supposedly in a pandemic. There are people who don't have their financial situation in order, but it's hard to move forward when you don't have your mental space proper, because us as indigenous people, we like to identify to something. And I can see that we have an identity crisis. This is one of the reasons why I feel like genealogy is important for us. That way we can at least understand where we come from. And this is also why I believe it was so easy for so many people to identify with MSTA, because we don't know where we come from. And that's a place that gives you an identity. And these are stateless people who don't understand where they come from.
And she DJ, what happened is, like Abdullah read a couple of weeks ago in the House of Reawakening Mind, when a Russian, and hear me out, this is not to political allegiance. This is considered to them as a cultural identity. Now you have to see what's going on here. When they make a claim, they make a claim as one, not of the this person, his black Russian, this Negro Russian, this Latino Russian, this Mexican Russian. You would never see them adjectives in front of the word Russian. You never see that. While when they argue with the world body, they don't let nobody come in there. And I go in Russia and say, I want every Russian to take a DNA test to prove that they from Russian, they from the Phoenician, the ancient people. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna kill you. That's a war. That's an act of war. We Moors gotta stop that mess. Let them do this stuff to us. Your blood pedigrees through your mother, not to your father. That's the lineage. That's not the blood pedigree. Somebody said, what are you talking about? Yes, I can prove that. If under the ancient Moab, Ishmael, which is Arabia, and Israel system, the man could not give his children the inheritance unless he had a woman that was of his what? Cultural identity of that nation. It couldn't be from a foreign nation. Even if they had Moors consanguinity, they still couldn't be from a foreign nation. What you mean? They have to have a political, that Moor had to have a political and cultural allegiance to that territorial land and the mother. So the man could not give his inheritance away. I'm gonna show you another example. When Israel came out of servitude from the nations, the prophet looked at them and said, "Oh, You can't, these children and women cannot inherit the land. You can't even stay married to them. Now, what are we talking about here? We're talking about true Buddhists. They say take the women and the children and give them a gift and send them away back to their country. Why, if you didn't marry a woman and she didn't have your children, they couldn't get the land? That's the matriarch principle. The blood pedigree was in a woman. Abraham, Isaac sent their children back to the land of the Phoenician land, Chaldean land. They had to cross back over the desert and marry a woman from the original house, the country, in order to get the inheritance. Now, Abraham married women in the land of Canaan, which is a foreign nation, because the Hebrews are crossed over Chaldean. So you have to know what's going on here. So when he crossed over, he married other women. Watch this. They could not get the inheritance because the woman. So if the blood pedigree, that the inheritance is in a man, we Moors are sadly mistaken because there's too much evidence to lock us down. Now, getting back to one day I missed, Electoral Constitution,
Article 44,
right, preserve that right, because they were spiritual people. Remember, the Lancaster was part of that confederacy, and it was what? They was a spiritual.
Did you say, excuse me, did you say Iroquois? The phone had broke up for a second. Did you say Iroquois?
Constitution, Article 44, the Article 47 preserve the matrilineal principle.
Yes.
Matrilineal principle.
Absolutely. Now, you know that anytime a seer deals with a people and they have a seer, if you're going to operate and say Noble Drew Ali is a seer, that means Noble Drew Ali have to bring to you something that we lost. I mean, it got to be shown a description of, he would have to say that the cosmos, the ethers filled me and spoke to me. And I received the revelation from the cosmic womb that enlightened me with what? Revelations, the Daoti, the language, the revelation. See, when a man or a woman don't say that, you can't put that on them. You can't grant them that. See, this is what we're doing. We're granting titles and statuses to men and women that they never say themselves. So the Lancaster was the spiritual. I could go back and grab documents to prove that the Lancaster had prophets and had prophetess that prophesied, that went into speaking in languages and receiving revelation. Yes, the Lancaster was considered a spiritual, the more divine people of peacemaking. This is how the European played on them through friendship, kindly friendship, being kind, friendship, amnesty, then taking the Europeans in and giving them asylum, and then you turn around and adopt them as your brother and as your sister in violation of the Torah, in violation with the Iroquois practice, which is dealing with what do you call it when you bring somebody in, you're dealing with adoption. They use that same principle of the Torah. You could not do that. You could not bring nobody in on the land unless they're going through the Torah with the ceremony. There has to be a ceremony done. That's culture. We got to attach ourselves back to culture. And what we're not doing, we're not attaching ourselves back to culture. We're not attaching ourselves. We're attaching ourselves to what? I heard it to the grapevine. See, that's what we're doing. It's being made up as they go along. As every year or every decade go on, somebody come up with a new story, a new myth that throw us off. It's all only to throw us off. Well, you want to add anything, Professor?
Oh, that's good point there. And one thing about there's a book titled by Merlin Stone, When God Was a Woman. And in that book, her research is in the area of the Middle East. And she shows the matrilineal and matriarchal system, matrilineal where the wealth, titles, inheritance passed down the motherline of the family or kin. Matriarchal, where mother rules, those principles are preserved in Article 44 to Article 47 of the Iroquois Constitution, or the Danasi Constitution. This is the ancient practice. So sovereignty, the ancient concept of sovereignty, is in the woman. That's the ancient concept of sovereignty. Let's talk.
Man, that's right.
The ancient concept of sovereignty has been suppressed. It's preserved in the Article 44 to 47 in the Ordonancy Iroquois Constitution. That's the ancient concept of sovereignty. So this ancient concept of sovereignty was practiced worldwide and for thousands of years. The modern concept of sovereignty was constructed in between 1644 and 1648, the Westphalia, Peace of Westphalia. That's the modern concept of sovereignty. That these nation states throughout the world, when these nation states convene in the United Nations and different confederations, using the modern concept of sovereignty that was constructed during the Peace of Westphalia between 1644 and 1648. This is very important. We got to rise to become jurists. All right. So the Peace of Westphalia of 1648 is suppressing the ancient concept of sovereignty that was in place for thousands of years worldwide. The Haudenosaunee Constitution preserves the ancient concept of sovereignty, Article 44 to Article 47. This is very important.
I don't think they heard what you said. I don't think they heard that. Can you repeat that part? Because that was really big.
All right. The Article 44 to Article 47 are the Haudenosaunee/Iroquois Constitution. Preserves the ancient concept of sovereignty that had been in place for thousands of years, had been practiced for thousands of years worldwide. There's a book called When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone. And there's another book called The Great Cosmic Mother. The Great Cosmic Mother is another book. There's the Peace of Westphalia, where about 100 nations convened, where they were issue of decades of wars. So to settle that, they came together in Urich from 1644 to 1648. That is called the Peace of Westphalia. That Peace of Westphalia constructed the modern concept of statehood and the modern concept of sovereignty. Please hear me. We must understand this. We're going to be able to dance with those jurists. We're going to be able to dance with you, jurists. We're going to be able to dance with you, United Nations. We're going to be able to dance with you, The Hague. We're going to be able to dance.
Brother Abdullah, because I have a comment. I have a comment, and they are alluding to that you all are very astute in history, but you all are not good with law as it pertains. And I was like, clearly they don't understand you all's background. You actually teach people about this type of, about how to actually become a jurist. So this is USAR. These are individuals who believe that they hold the highest claim. And it's just, I felt like that was a super disrespectful statement, just because I understand what you all do for the people. You actually teach these people law. That's the reason why I brought you all on, because you know this better than these people who are assuming to know it, and you've been doing it for years. And that's the reason why you all are saying what you are saying, because you can back it up and you can prove it. Go ahead, Brother Abdullah, I can hear you.
All right. A jurist consultant, and a jurist has a great background in history, political science, political philosophy, linguistics. So there's no way in the world that no one can be astute in law if they don't know history. You cannot be astute in law if you do not know history. Why? Why is history important? Because history gives you insight as well as language into well-settled principles. There is an article titled "The History of Equity Jurisprudence." Get that article, "The History of Equity Jurisprudence." And in that article, that is well written, that jurist in that article, he goes back to the origin of equity, even before the Babylonian. He refers to the script, the Hammurabi codes. But he referred that the Hammurabi codes did not come from Hammurabi, that they even come be prior to the Babylonian. So so what he did was, if they breaking down the Hammurabi codes and showed throughout the article the watered down over the period of centuries that equity jurisprudence had been watered down. You have those who go to law school don't know that. Those who go to law school do not learn what that jurist learned. Those who go to law school only, they don't go about this author went back to the Sumerian, went back to Chaldean, the well-settled principles. There's no way in the world you will never become a jurist. Never, ever, ever, ever become a jurist if you don't study history and language. There's no way in the world. There's no such thing as a jurist or Jewish consultant not knowing history and law, because you will not base your argument in well-settled principles. As I said before, I said this in my Getting to the Roots class 201, the Academy of Providence. The class is tomorrow, the last class, the 7-week course. Getting to the Roots, class number 1. What I said to my class, I put the term Western civilization on the board. What the Albions did was take our culture and constructed the term Western civilization to make claim to it. You must understand, the Albions, they go back to that which is well settled. They're suppressing. When talking about the Peace of Westphalia, that's history. Are you aware that they're constructing, they're suppressing? As I said before, the Peace of Westphalia of 1648 is the modern construct of statehood and sovereignty. What are they doing? They're masking, they're suppressing the ancient concept of sovereignty that was been placed for thousands of years worldwide, which was based in the woman. That is preserved in the Adenausi/Iroquois Constitution. That's history. So how are you going to become schooled in law when you don't know history and language? Understand, furthermore, you must understand there's two principles. You have the originalist and constructionist. The originalist deals with the original intent, the etymology. Constructionist deals with they're suppressing the original intent. You must understand that. Let me refer to a case. Thompson, Foster versus Nielsen. Foster versus Nielsen. This is a treaty case, the treaty between the United States and Spain. I think 1821 treaty between the United States and Spain. The Foster versus Nielsen, in adjudicating that case, what was used was the English version of the treaty. In that case was quelled. It was what? It was revisited in United States versus Thompson. And United States versus Thompson, they made an error. They recognized in Foster versus Nielsen, an error had been made. So instead of using the English version of the treaty, which gave it a different interpretation, they used, based on the international canon of interpretation, they used the Spanish version of the treaty. And in Spanish, and using the Spanish version of the treaty, it gave a different interpretation that the Spaniards, in ceding the land, West Florida, Moorish land, West Florida, to the United States, they did not cede jurisdiction. So a Spaniard in that Moorish land, their property was preserved. So those Spanish land grants were still enforced and protected by that treaty between the United States and Spain. That is the language that protected using the Spanish, once again, language. All right. So what's going on, DJ, is that they're not connecting history, language, and law. You have to talk history. See what's going on. Understand what's going on, DJ, is that they're looking at law school. They're looking at how they went online, right? And they look Rutgers University or Temple and so forth, and that these are the curriculum for someone to be a lawyer in law school. And they don't see that, and they say, oh, they're not, where's the history at? Where's language? Sure, they're not being taught history. These people are taught law? hold on, Shem, that's law school? Shem, how's that law school? There's no history.
Now, can I make a statement?
I'm doing that, DJ, because we have to.
No. I am thankful that you were doing that, because it's necessary in order to lay out the historic background for the premise of the people that we're even speaking on. That way there's foundation on the conversation. So for anybody who's not articulate enough in order to understand what was going on, I'm just we can slow it down a little bit for you, but you know, like we dealing with some big brains over here, so it's okay. But I do have a bunch of USAR members keep on repeating themselves in the comments. They are saying they're asking me to mention statehood. They said we know civics. Ask him, is he stateless? Because they said nationality, and this is true. The temple cannot confer nationality. But nationality acquisition can come about multiple ways, such as, you know, bloodline, marriage, where you are born if you're adopted. That's through the law, and that's the same thing that their teacher, Canon Bay, speaks on. So they asked about nationality, Moorish American nationality, and being stateless.
All right, so hold on.
Before you answer,
He said he this is the actual statement. So he said he's stateless, DJ. He's referring to one of you all. They're calling you stateless because you don't belong to USAR. So do you understand how Moors are attacking other Moors like this, saying that you're not right because you haven't clicked up with Canon Bay? Do you see the ideology behind this? I feel like that's a colonizer mindset.
All right, let's first, for the audience, once again, language, nationality acquisition. That is colorful. You can acquire a car. You can't acquire blood. Blood is inherited. That's genetic. That is construction. Once again, we must understand constructive language. So nationality acquisition is constructive language by the international arena. They're using nationality in the political sense, not in the consanguinity sense. They're using nationality in the sense of allegiance and political status, not in the sense of consanguinity. So hear me out. We are Moors by consanguinity. We say, well, Moors, let's get nationalized. We got to nationalize the people. Let's nationalize. What does that mean? There's no paperwork. There's no document. There's nothing that you can ever present to me. No one in the world can present to me that makes somebody a Moor, consanguinity wise, makes them a Moor consanguinity. All right. So what is nationality? What is nationalization for the Moors? Let me explain. nationalization for the Moors is bringing the Moors back under the protection of Moorish sovereignty, under protection of Moorish treaty, having allegiance to a Moorish government. That is nationalization for the Moors. There's
They're
no
saying,
document that
excuse
makes
me, brother Abdullah, just for clarity, they don't identify as Moors. They are Moorish Americans.
All right.
Linguistically, I want you to crush it.
All right. Once again, let's go to the treaties. The treaties between, I have to go, I have to, you got to continue to go to what's well settled. Please, those who are listening, I'm helping y'all out. I'm helping y'all out. Please hear me out, please. I'm helping you out on how to debate, on how to argue. Don't allow somebody to get you off of what's well settled. Once you move off to what's well settled, they got you. Never, ever move off to what's well settled. The treaties between Morocco and the European powers between 1610 and 1892. The term Moorish American does not appear. Nor would you Ali coined the term Moorish American. Hear me out, please. When I say coin, what do you mean by that, Abdullah? Nor Ali did not create the term Moorish, the word Moorish. Neither did he create the word American. He brought Moorish and American together, thereby creating a term. Juali coined the term Moorish American. The word Moorish, the term Moorish and the word Moorish American come together, did not exist in 1610 and 1500 and 1700. That was coined by Juali by bringing two words that are related in origin, Moorish and American, having the same origin, but based on ablat, A-B-L-L-A-B-L-U-T, based on ablat, different pronunciation, he created the term Moorish American. Moorish American does not exist in any of the treaties between Moroccan Empire and the United States. The treaties that I have in Moorish Masons, the treaties that I have in Moorish Masonry, I have over 150 treaties listed in Moorish
Brother Abdullah, I want to give you a plug real quick. One, they are hosting the jurist class. When does it start? On the 25th of this month?
The 25th of September. That's public relations international law. Public relations international law will be begin on Saturday at 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The classes are run for 12 Saturdays, for 12 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And from September 25th, it starts. You go to UnitedRepublicOfMorocco.com and click on Academy of Providence. .org. United Republic of Morocco.org and click on Academy of Providence. All right. And you have that posted. You see that course. There's 2 payment options. The classes will be live via Zoom, also in class, and the classes are recorded. So if you can't make it live on Saturdays, because the classes are recorded, you can be able to catch up on your work the next day or before during the course of the week. All right, thank you for that. The Academy of Providence.
Your other plug, because you're an author as well, and that's what you were just you were alluding to. Please support this brother and go purchase his books. He, as you can tell, he is very well studied. He's an intellectual. I got my own library myself. I support all of my people when it comes to their literature. I read all books. So please, can you get back into Moors and Masonry, please?
Yes. If you go to moorsandmasonry.org to get my books, I have in Moors and Masonry. I have the history, dealing with the history of diplomacy, extraterritoriality, and consular jurisdiction between the Moroccan Empire and the European powers between 1610 and 1892. And the 1952 case between France and the United States in the International Court of Justice. There were 3 types of treaties that were used to adjudicate that case. The first type of treaty that was used was the primary treaties between the Morocco and European powers between 1631 to 1892. The second type of treaty that was used to adjudicate that case is the Act of Algiers of 1906, as Shem mentioned, and the Act to Protect Morocco, 1880. The third type of treaty that was used to adjudicate that case was the French Protectorate of what's called the Fez Treaty of 1912. Those are the three types of treaties that were used to adjudicate that case. And none of those treaties do you see the term Moorish American. That's coined by Drew Ali. That's what I'm saying is we have to argue on facts. It's a lot of things that's made up. Drew Ali coined the term Moorish American.
So that means Moorish American is 1900s on out.
Yeah, Drew Ali. Okay. No, Drew Ali. The origin of the coining of the term, bringing Moorish and American together, was Drew Ali. Let's know what Drew Ali. All right, let's explain. What do those in the Moorish Science Temple? This is what those in the Moorish Science Temple, when they say Moorish American, Moorish, that's their consanguinity. American, United States citizen. Moorish consanguinity. American, United States citizen. They have the Moorish flag and the Star Spangled Banner. Moorish American. I'm a Moor who's a United States citizen. I'm a Moor who's United. We have to understand, what do they think? What do the sheiks, grand governors, sheikhs, what is their concept of Moorish American? A Moor who is a United States citizen. They have no clue that American and Moor have the same origin. American and Moor have the same origin. They think American is America Vespucci. They think American, the word American, originates from the Europeans. It does not. Once again, that's ablot. That's a sound shift from Moroccan. All right, so we got to first provide clarity. So
one of the Moors did ask a question. He asked it in a manner that the audience could receive it properly. It is like, so what treaty gives us nationality and how do we use it in court? And they were asking, if the temple can't confer nationality, how would someone go about actually acknowledging their nationality or being able to identify it if you know that we have been classified as Negro, colored, Black, Ethiopian, African, which is a true statement from the prophet?
No treaty gives you your Moorish nationality. None. There's no treaty. All right. Let me do this. Let me do this, DJ. What treaty gives you your bloodline? I mean, that's what he's asking. No
treaty gives me my bloodline. My bloodline comes through my parents.
No, but I'm saying you have to understand when the person asks what treaty, I need the person, the natural person, to understand what is he conveying. What idea are you conveying when you ask that question? You're asking the question, what treaty gives you your Moorish bloodline? You say, well, what treaty gives you a nationality? All right. What treaty gives you Moorish bloodline? It's the one and the same. It's one and the same. What treaty gives you a Moorish nationality? What treaty gives you a Moorish bloodline? It's one and the same. Unless the one who asked the question, DJ, doesn't understand what nationality is.
No, he is. I have spoken to this brother. He was on the platform previously. He is aware of what nationality is. He is a member of USAR. That is the reason why he is asking these questions, because they even ask what state do you belong to? And the only reason why I feel comfortable asking these questions because I don't feel like it's a level of entrapment, because I know you're articulate and you can express it in a manner where the audience can receive it. And then it could also where even USAR can receive what you're saying, because me personally, I don't believe one particular thing is the end all to be all. Everybody has their own cultural beliefs and directions that we all go in. But I do believe we can find some clarity out of this conversation that we are having now.
All right, I want to address the word belief, DJ, because I hear that a lot. DJ, we don't want to throw in belief into this discussion. Please hear me out, DJ. Let's use epistemology. Epistemology is a branch in philosophy. I have to educate the people. It's a branch of philosophy of how one knows knowledge. You have presumption, all right, which is those truths that has not been established as based in truth. You have presumption, which is assumptions that's not based in established truth. So you have presumption and established truth. A presumption is not established truth. A presumption will only stand as long as it's not a challenge. So a belief under the category of presumption and not established truth. So DJ, we don't want to weaken this presentation by saying everyone has different beliefs. No, we're not, DJ. I'm not talking beliefs.
Hey, let me correct myself. I'm not big on belief either. Let's get to the facts so we can have clarity.
I know that, but I want to address that, DJ. It's important that I do address that because you hear that from thousands of people. You hear that I have a right to my belief. I have a right to my own belief. Everyone has a right to their belief. DJ, we're talking. All right, if we're among jurists, we're in an international court of justice. We're in international court of justice. You will never hear, ever, in the international court of justice, everyone has a right to their belief. So DJ, let's be in the international court of justice. Let's put our minds.
And for the record, Brother Abdullah, they said you didn't know international law, but you just said let's get into international jurisdiction. I just wanted you to get to it. I wasn't even gonna bring it up because I know who you are. I know you. I know who you are.
I've been dealing with international law.
I know who you are.
We've been doing that for the last 2 hours. We've been dealing with international law. They don't understand what international law is based in. This is what I was saying. That once again, DJ, I'm gonna say, let's get to it. I got to it. Once again, only reason I'm repeating myself is to make the connection that we are addressing international law. By my referring to the book, When God Was a Woman, that research, that volume of research by Merlin Stone chronicles that ancient concept of sovereignty, matrilineal. That is, I want you to be aware that there's an international law. The Treaty of Westphalia suppresses that. So how in the world, so there we are, we're going to deal with modern statehood. All right. We're going to deal with, are you aware that modern statehood principle is a suppressing of our ancient customs, which is matrilineal. Ancient sovereignty is based in the woman, not statehood. Hear me out. Let me say it again. The concept of ancient sovereignty is not based in statehood. It's based in the woman. That's the Treaty of Peace of Westphalia. These European powers, 100 of them, convened in 1644. I'm dealing with the constructive language in international law. Please hear me. Please, I'm teaching you something. We must understand constructive language, constructive concepts that are put in place to suppress our culture, to suppress our birthright. Our birthright is tied to the motherline of the family. If you do not acknowledge that, you are doing what the Albigans are doing. The Albigans constructed They are constructing through the treaty, the Peace of Westphalia, the modern concept of statehood, which stills our birthright. Hear me out. The modern concept of statehood stills our birthright. They constructed that to do that. That patriarchy is based, patriarchy is what? Suppressing the ancient concept, ancient principle of matrilineal, which was in place for thousands of years. You talk about a practice and an ancient system that was in place for thousands of years worldwide, now been suppressed. It's been preserved in Article 44 to Article 47 in the Iroquois Haudenosaunee Constitution. Show me a place where the ancient concept of sovereignty being preserved. This is a constitution of 6 nations forming a confederation. Preserve that ancient principle tied to the woman that has been in place for thousands of years. Give me another document, please bring it to me. Another document that preserves as a constitution the ancient principle of sovereignty that had been in place for thousands of years. Ancient concept of sovereignty is tied to the woman side of the family. The modern concept of sovereignty is based in the Peace of Westphalia, 1648. I am talking international law. I am talking and teaching you how to detect constructionism, which is to put in place to steal our birthright. I must talk like this.
Absolutely. Number 2. And another thing too, also see what we see when you hear the international community say that the people are being denied, when you hear the word positive law and you hear negative law, negative and positive, and you got law. Law is culture. So when you hear somebody say, we don't know nothing about international law, if you can't go back, law is culture, land, air, and water. That's the earth. That's the hemisphere. That's the atmosphere. You got the air, that's the atmosphere. That's the hemisphere. Then you got the water and you got land. That's culture. So if you think land is not culture, and you think land is a bunch of opinions of a court or statutes made by parliament or executive orders given out by a head of state. No, when you say you deny law, you deny culture. Culture, consequentity. If somebody say right here, they get mad at you if you say you're more. You go sell an application and say you're Indian, American Indian, they get mad at you. That's being denied culture. Because them category words and consequentity are the body and culture. So when one talk about culture, you're talking about law. When you don't know law mean culture, you better check yourself because you don't know what's going on. When they say international law, they talk about international culture. Mean culture between foreign nations that claim to be a people in the earth, claiming a territorial boundary as their country.
Brother Shem, I have a question as it pertains to allegiance, because I have quite a few more in the room right now, and they are asking I'll phrase the question so it's proper. So how do you know that you have a proper allegiance with your state or your government? And if it's not one present, how do we identify a proper allegiance with our state or state government as it pertains to, these are Moorish Americans who are making these statements.
Well,
because clearly you all just expressed the American Indian community is taken care of.
Well, basically, the problem is when you claim a political allegiance to a state, a corporate state government, you're claiming to be a refugee. You don't have a country. Because the refugee, see, they need to go back and read the Refugee Convention. where all the nations came together and say that, see, when you evade yourself of the protection of your country, when you run from your culture and you run from the political identity of your country, then you're not protected by the treaties that's signed by the ruling dynasties of the country. You're not protected. So let me give an example. When your mother, let's go back to the 19th century, when our mother started going into these de facto states, vessels on the AMITY law, they went into a vessel and dropped their goods, their baby. They went in there without a passport, a flag, protected under a flag, or identity papers of cultural identity, claiming their consequentity. So the women, when they had the baby, they gave the baby an English name. That doesn't just nationalize the baby. What nationalize the baby is when they make a political allegiance, not to their country under cultural consequentity. They make what you call a political allegiance to a foreign state or foreign government. Therefore, they're not protected by the laws or the treaty of their country because they don't have a national.
I have a linguistic question about that. Because the manner in which it's being posed, how Brother Abdullah answered the question earlier, I feel like it would be fitting for this question. It says so are you stateless? And linguistically, I know, and then also historically, I would like for that to be answered because you did it earlier. Yes, like I just needed to be clear because right now, from what I can tell, there is only one set of Moorish Americans that is inputting confusion right now. It seems like everybody else is on the same page. What y'all saying line up? Moorish American or Moor treaty is Moor treaty. They understand that everybody I'm getting, except for this one group of individuals, and they keep on going to this stateless point because they feel as if they're their own government body. So linguistically, I just want you to tear it apart.
All right. Those who ask the question are stateless. We all are stateless. Please. We all are stateless. Those who are members of the USSR are stateless. Those who are members of the USSR are stateless. All of us are stateless. All of us are stateless. We have not restored under the reversion to sovereignty. Just hear me out. You're stateless too. Under the reversion of sovereignty, we have not re-entered the international community. We have not claimed the Moorish sovereignty with a population of people as voters, with a national constitution, and re-entered the international community as the old state, exercising the sovereignty once exercised by emperors, caliphs, beys. We're all stateless. All right, we're all stateless. Now, the USSR has not done that. I don't need to talk to them. I know who I talk to.
Brother, I will not ask you any more of their questions, bro.
Brother,
they have not shut it down.
They have not reestablished diplomacy with the treaty nations. As I said before, the first type of treaties that was adjudicated in the 1952 case between France and the United States was a treaty between Morocco and the European powers. There's 10 of them between 1631 to 1891. They have not deposited the instrument under the reversion of sovereignty and entered the international community as an old and original state. They have not done that. They have not done that. Neither have we. We're all stateless. Let's talk the truth. We're all stateless.
That's what we here for. I'm gonna have to change the name. Even people are feeling ways, but the facts have been presented. They have given you resources. I actually shared all of the links and the names of the treaties before we even came on here. So you cannot say that they're not bringing this heat. And I am thankful that you all have came and graced this platform and you have shared all of this information with the body of people, whether they identify as being Moors, Aboriginal, Indigenous, whatever have you, even if any Europeans are watching this. I'm thankful that y'all came over here to do this because it needed to be done, this level of clarity. And I myself, I am thankful because I was sitting here learning. I was silent because I was learning. And it's not often in my field that I can sit and learn from people because of what I deal in. And I'm thankful because of how oversaturated YouTube has become when there's actual teaching going on. So thank you, brothers. I'm not gonna hold y'all up any longer. We coming up on 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I know y'all got things to do. Y'all really be out there working. So is there anything that y'all would like to say to the people? I'm not rushing y'all or anything, but I'm not trying to hold y'all.
All right,
let me read this. Go ahead.
It was .com. It's yes. About our program. This is the it's United Republic of Morocco.com. You click on Academy of Providence. This is about our program. The 12-week contract law course will teach students governmental procedure dealing with with diplomacy and international law. Secondly, students will be taught Secondly, students will be taught how justices and jurists weigh in the facts and merits pertaining to treaties, acts, covenants, conventions, constitutions, and agreements affecting nations whenever there is a dispute based on agreements or contracts signed between two or more nations. Finally, students will learn the principles, procedures, and remedies pursuant to international law and adjudication collateral estoppel. The course is titled Public Administration and International Law. As I said before, you go to UnitedRepublicOfMorocco.com and click on Academy of Providence. UnitedRepublicOfMorocco.com and click on Academy of Providence. Once again, the class we are live via Zoom communication, and we have in class at 602 Vanderveer, Wilmington, Delaware. The class begins on September 25th. Their classes will be held on Saturdays from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. So we're looking forward. There's two payment options: a payment option of full and a payment option of two partial payments. All right. So get your seat, get your tickets. Once again, go to UnitedRepublicOfMorocco.com and click on Academy of Providence to get my books, Moors and Masonry, Masonic Compass Square, and the connection to timekeeping and measurement, etymology and vocabulary, how moon and Venus rule, the illumination of the mind book. You go to moorsandmasonry.org. Moors, the word and, masonry.org. All right. Thank you, DJ, for inviting us to this wonderful platform. Please I
had a great time.
We had a wonderful time. Thank you.
I enjoyed talking to y'all on the phone all the time. This was great.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate you, Chief.
I'm about to say what Brother Shem, but Brother Shem, he love call. I for the record, because there's other people on the platform. Everybody don't know my tribal status, but yeah, I just identify as not everybody don't know my ancestry, but I appreciate the honors, good brother. And also with Nishi, I understand it. I just don't be telling the public that because you know how our people can be sometimes. They like to try and challenge you. I understand my bloodline. And you've seen it yourself.
When they call him a president, they call him a president. Why not call them Moors what they are?
You got be able to stand on it. All right, so thank you again, DJ.
Yes, peace and love, good brothers. You all have a great day.
All right, peace.
Man, what a great build. We can do this all the time. We have a awesome Rolodex. I have more people coming to bring more information. So if you all would please hit the like button, share, subscribe. Please share this video, share it on Facebook, share it on YouTube. That way we can bring some clarity to the situation. And for those of you all who don't know, my baby up now. Tribe is tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You on Central, 8 p.m. They gonna get it popping. They said they got some words for USAR, and you know they about to dig all up and through this video and come snatch some stuff down. On top of They already got a whole plethora of receipts, dog. So I'm going over there to go watch the show. I don't know if I'm coming on. I don't like they saying I'm biased, but as you know, like I just had elders come on and acknowledge who I am and my status on both sides. It's just I'm here for truth. I hope you all came and you all received something great. I'm about to go do my daddy duties. Peace and love.